Every day, pollution around the world becomes more of a global issue. This pollution can include things as little as driving your car down the street, going in a plane, and on a larger scale, even carbon dioxide emissions from many larger companies and also larger machines. These types of pollutions are one of the first that come to mind because they have very obvious short-term effects. But one type of pollution that is often overlooked is plastic pollution, but more specifically, plastic pollution in the ocean. This is a problem that personally wasn't as prevalent to me until I was able to firsthand see when I went to a country known for its history and its beauty, Egypt. This trip was one of the most amazing experiences I had ever had. Going to see all of the historical sites was truly amazing, including the very famous Nile River. I remember I was walking along the Nile River, which was absolutely stunning, and the one thing that did stand out to me was the plastic that was accumulated along the edges and also in the river itself. I also noticed this again in Egypt when I was visiting the edge of the Gulf of Suez and saw the same thing. Plastic everywhere. This made me think, how did we get to this place in society where bodies of ocean and water are littered with all sorts of plastic? Also, what are these long-term effects that can happen for all this plastic in our society if it hasn't affected us already? I did more research when I came home and saw that plastic pollution is a problem that has been going on for centuries and many, many years before this. It started early on when sailors and ships would throw all of their waste in the ocean, not thinking about what the effects would be later on in life. But to be fair, this also wasn't a huge issue because ocean pollution on a large scale wasn't as prevalent back then as it is now. Nowadays, plastic pollution in the ocean is one of the main issues and now harming all sorts of life in the ocean. A study by the National Academy of Sciences in the 1970s showed that over 1 million seabirds that rely every day on getting their food and anything, and at least 100,000 sea mammals die every year due to this pollution in the ocean. This is actually a very, very large number of marine life that actually die because of our doings every single day. So let's take a bottle of water, for example. One of these plastic bottles holds water for maybe 1 or 2 times if we're lucky, and if we want to reuse it. One of these bottles takes about 450 years for it to degrade and fully return back to the earth. This is actually more than 4 lifetimes. I mean, we wouldn't even be here to see one of these bottles degrade back to the earth. Now just think about all the plastic bottles on the earth and are polluted and littered and just thrown out every single day, and how long it would take for them, all of them, to degrade. It's actually a really long time. This plastic that we're using every single day is very non-essential, which includes plastic water bottles like these, soda bottles, plastic bags that we get from any stores, any convenience stores, grocery stores, and they actually are one of the largest amount of pollution and accumulate so much in the ocean and have very, very negative effects in the ocean as well too. So this plastic pollution can happen on a really, really large scale as well, where it can be taken, where pictures from satellites and high above, like bird's eye view, can see it on a very, very large scale. And a really, really good example of this is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch covers an area from the West Coast, anywhere from California and Washington, and all the way to Japan. It is known to be at least double the size of Texas. So just imagine how big Texas is with millions of people in it and double that, and it's about to be at least the size of that. So it's actually a really, really large amount. And also, this is only what scientists and researchers can see from the surface, but below that, they don't really know how much plastic is under that. Scientists and researchers say that a lot of this plastic can even go all the way down to the ocean floor, and we don't even know. So it's actually a lot, and a lot of that plastic is sinking, some of it's floating, we're not really sure, but it's really hard to detect how much is there and to what extent it's there. It's become very, very large, and so scientists aren't really sure how to even begin to combat this problem. And now, especially, it's becoming very difficult as every day more plastic is accumulating, and there's so much plastic. So a way that scientists have tried to explain this, or explained how it's like, or how it's like trying to think of a solution for this, is they say to imagine 1 million sand particles just kind of disperse, and how would you try to clean that up? That's basically how it's like for them when they're thinking about how to clean up all the plastic and even microplastics that aren't seen on the surface either from like the naked eye. So this garbage patch now is showing some really negative effects on the environment, and this includes birds who depend on the ocean and fish to get their food, and a lot of wildlife that actually ingest these really tiny microplastics that they can't see from their naked eye, and are now showing really toxic effects on them and on many animals that actually eat these fish, or even humans sometimes who are eating these fish that have ingested microplastics, because it essentially comes to us. So it's like a whole chain effect where many animals are consuming animals that have consumed these microplastics, and it can have an effect on all of us. It's also having a very horrible effect on another very popular marine life in the ocean, which are coral reefs. Coral reefs have been endangered for many decades. There was a whole problem in the early 2000s that was with coral reefs and the coral bleaching. And it was a really big problem in the marine and the oceans. But as plastic pollution started to increase in the oceans, it began to endanger these coral reefs again. Scientists and researchers have said that without plastic pollution in the ocean, coral reefs have about 4% chance of getting diseased, getting diseases in the ocean or getting infected. But with plastic actually being in the ocean, this increases their chance of getting diseases to about 89%. And the way that these coral reefs actually get diseases is that larger plastics and even microplastics, they float down and they make cuts in the ocean, in the coral reef actually. And when they do that, they're more susceptible to getting bacteria to infect them and come on them. And it's just easier for bacteria to do that. But as plastic pieces, larger ones like plastic bags or anything, fall in the coral reefs, this is the perfect environment for bacteria to actually infect these coral reefs and essentially kill them. So this is happening so much in the ocean, whereas it doesn't seem like it's such a big deal, but it actually is lately. And coral reefs all over, especially in the Pacific Ocean, are dying. With more numbers of coral reefs dying every day, it endangers many more marine life, which include baby fish that depend on coral reefs for protection. And they don't have that protection when they're tiny, so as the coral reefs are dying, it's also infecting the little tiny fish that are depending on it. So there's many things that we can do to prevent the plastic pollution in the ocean, but recently, with the coronavirus happening, there's a new problem with masks and gloves that are disposable. People are getting panicked out about the germs and infecting them, or even being in the garbages or in the trash bins, so they actually are polluting them in bodies of water, lakes, rivers, ponds, oceans, and it's becoming very negative on people, on the environment. So what we need to do as a society is we need to be more aware of all the plastic that we're polluting in the oceans, and make sure that, we're doing our part to save the earth and the environment.